2. All right, hello and welcome everyone to another Chat and Learn here with PowerToFly. My name is Mariella Marie and I'm super excited to roll into this next hour with you all. I had a chance to speak with our guest speaker offline and she's going to be dropping knowledge about one of my favorite themes in the world, which is language. We have so much room to grow in the way that we use our language. So I really want to just jump right into some housekeeping rules with you all so that everyone feels comfortable and confident in this next hour. So first, thank you all for joining us. Lots of crazy things going on in the world. So you could be anywhere else, but you're deciding to spend the hour with us. And I just want to say thank you. With that said, we really want you to maximize this time. So turn your cameras on if you feel called to do so. I've muted everyone upon entrance just to avoid background noise, but I can't stress enough, would love for you to turn your cameras on, take yourselves off of mute, write in the chat box whenever you have something you want to share. Hi, everyone. I see you turning your cameras on. I really appreciate you. With that said, if anyone has any sensitive information and wants to be kept anonymous, you can find me in the chat box under Mariella Marie. You can write to me anonymously and I'll flag that to our guest speaker. Otherwise, just drop in the chat publicly and I'll raise that to our guest speaker as we go through this next hour. If you do come off mute, you will be featured in our live recording. With that said, I know that we live in a world where everyone is multitasking, but I invite you all to be present with us so that you can make the most out of this time. You can voice your opinion. You can tell us a dream you had last night, something, any tips and tricks you want to share for the next hour. We really want to hear from you. So I invite you to stop multitasking and to be present with us for this next hour so that we can get your questions answered. You will be getting a rewatch email with the link to this recorded video, and that way you can rewatch this and take notes vigorously there, but we do ask for your attention at this time. The last thing that I'll say is we would love for you to follow us on socials and then subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can keep up with all the great chats we've got lined up for the rest of the month. I can't believe this year is almost over. Wow. So with that said, it's crazy. I'm going to pass the mic now to our guest speaker. I know she's got some knowledge to drop. Diane, I'm not going to read what's on the screen here. So can you please tell us a little bit about yourself, how you came to know about PowerToFly, and what you're excited to share with us today?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mariella, and thank you, Nicole. I love any group or organization that supports women. That's what I do. I run a company called Reboot Excel. That's ACCEL. And we have a ton of resources for women, both returning to the workplace, perhaps after a pause, which is something I did personally. I took 16 years off to raise 3 children and found that women like me have a lot to learn in terms of feeling current, connected, and confident to return to work. So that is the genesis of what we do. We have expanded, and we have weekly workshops and all kinds of tools and resources on our website for anyone pivoting or returning. We also work with companies on creating more inclusive workplaces, so diverse and inclusive, and do leadership inclusive leadership training with executive teams. So those are some of the things we do. I love workshops for women. This is one of my favorites. And people always say, how did you start giving this workshop? So are you ready for me just to launch in, Mariella?
I am ready for you to launch in. And I just want to shout out folks who are joining us live so that we can see where we are calling from in the world. So I'm calling from Argentina. I know we've got some folks on the line who are also calling from Argentina. Diana's calling from Northern California. And I'm just going to do a shout out here in the chat box. If you haven't already written in the chat box, let us know where you're calling from. We've got Sonoma County, California, Pennsylvania, Austin, Texas. We've got California again, Kansas, San Francisco Bay Area, Sacramento, Buenos Aires, Palo Alto, Bay Area, Miami Beach, Sacramento, Houston, Texas, New Jersey, the Bay Area, Portland, Palo Alto, New York, Oakland, Denver, New Jersey, the Bay Area. Awesome. Bay Area is representing. California is representing hard on this call. So thank you all for joining us. And Diane, go ahead and keep us in mind. We are, a global community now for this next hour.
Terrific. And as we talk about language, I will point out when there are perhaps regional nuances. So I learn every time I give this talk. Please use chat. I can't see it because I'm sharing my screen, but Mariella will be watching the chat. If you have things to add to the conversation, if you want to challenge what I say, if you have questions, those are all great. I love all of that. Back to why I give this talk. Several years ago, I had an opportunity to speak at South by Southwest, which is a big, for those of you in Austin, you know what that is, a big conference. And it was one of the biggest audiences that I had been invited to speak with. So I hired a speech coach. And the first thing my speech coach told me after I did a practice run, he said, Diane, you have to get rid of the word. And I said, oh, Nathan, I don't say And he said, listen to your recording. And I did. And that was a huge aha moment for me when it comes to language, because what I realized is how many things we do that we are absolutely unconscious of doing. And when I listened and realized how many times I say things like or like, I started thinking, wow, what else do I do in my language patterns that could be minimizing how I come across? And so I embarked on research to find out what are all the things, especially women, tend to do when they speak. And I have synthesized it into a 1 hour, 15 ways to up your game talk. A few caveats as we get into this. First of all, I've read all your questions that you put in advance. And one of you said, and I get this a lot, why are we trying to sound more like men? And I want to tell you, we are not trying to sound like men. I do not advocate you sound like a man. Women, one of the hallmarks of our leadership style is that we lead with empathy and compassion. And the last thing I want is for us to lose that talent and that gift, because I think that is needed. That is part of the wonderful fabric of diversity that we bring. However, I want you to exude confidence and have impact that you intend to have. And so to do that, there are some pretty simple things we can do in our speech patterns that will up your game. I also want to point out that I've given this many, many times to many groups, and I always get people challenging certain things I say, and that's great. The point is that most of these are guidelines. These are not hard and fast do's and don'ts. Some are. I don't think ever adds to your speech patterns, but there are some you're going to debate, and that's just fine. My point today is to help you grow some antenna so that you use speech intentionally. You know why you're choosing to use those words and thinking about, are there other words that might have better impact? Okay, so that's the preamble before we get into this. I love this quote from Mark Twain. The difference between the right word and the almost right word is the difference between lightning and the lightning bug. And what I hope to do is electrify your language a little bit today. So typically when I used to do this in person, which I really love, although I like the reach we can have on Zoom now, I would ask you how weak language impacts our careers. So if you want, you can put it in the chat, but I also want to keep us moving. So I'm going to offer up some things I hear all the time. It undermines our effectiveness. It can weaken our credibility. It can water down our message. And it can actually impact our ability to advance. And I've heard this. I coach women in business, and often they want to work on their language because it is impacting their advancement. So what if instead of Laura Ulrich saying, well-behaved women seldom make history? I'm no expert, but I think well-behaved women seldom make history. Or Malala, who we all love and respect. When the world is silent, when the whole world is silent, even one voice becomes powerful. Does this make sense? We do this all the time. We undermine our own impact. So again, this is where you might want to put in the chat, how do you want to sound? And I would argue, and what I've heard when I give this, is we want to sound assertive. We want to sound competent, capable, confident. Okay, you don't see words like arrogant or bully. These are words that are perfectly fine to want to be. So as we go through the 15 ways we use that weak, tentative, and minimizing language, quick guessing game, again, you can put it in the chat. What is the number one thing, according to studies I've read, that number one word that women use, that if we were to take it out, we would instantly improve our sense of confidence and impact? Are there any?
I'm going to read some of the chat boxes blowing up right now. So we've got sorry, just, sorry, like, I think, just,
okay.
Sorry, I think. Yeah, mostly
that's good.
Those.
Well, you all know where this talk is going, and many of you were correct. The word is just. I'm just checking in. I just have a few handouts. I just want to mention, I just want to find out, I'm just looking for, I'm just following up. Can you hear how that makes me sound a little apologetic and a little defensive? I don't want to just check in. I have something important to say or something important to offer. So when you use the word just, think about, is that adding to what you're trying to communicate? The second word, which many of you guessed, is sorry. I guess that was easy since it's in the title. And I had to laugh because we had a little blunder when we sent out this link to our community to invite them. The link wasn't working properly, so we had to send out an apology for the broken link to come to the talk to not say sorry. So anyway, and I'm also not going to apologize for the poinsettia. I thought, should I apologize that I've already put holiday up? But my son is coming home from college tonight, and I wanted to have just a little touch of holiday. So I am not going to apologize for my poinsettia. But anyway, sorry has become an unconscious habit. And I think somewhere along the line for women, it has become a reflex. If any of you play tennis, I laugh having given this talk. I will be on a court with 4 women and there will be 4 men next to me. The men are quiet the whole time. And the women, we sometimes have to have a pact, like there are no apologies allowed on this court because it's like, sorry, 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 sorry. We just do it reflexively. And there are many situations where an apology is warranted. Okay, apologies, I have nothing against apologies. However, women are 37% more likely than men to consider their behavior worthy of an apology. I'm going to play a very short video from Pantene that I think is a good way to demonstrate this. Oops, let me go back.
The prototype that we have. Sorry, can I ask a stupid question?
Sorry, do you have a minute? Sorry. Sorry.
Hey, there he is. Mind if I squeeze in here?
Sorry. Sorry. Sorry.
Sorry, go first. No, I was gonna say. I have a question. Why don't we go back to the original thing that we did?
Morning. You got a minute?
Sorry, not sorry.
Sorry, not sorry.
Shout out to Pantene there. So I mentioned, a few of you asked about what's the research behind this. There's not a ton of research, but I've tried to introduce research when I found it. There is research on this. I mentioned the 37% number. There was also a study done in 2010 from Psychological Science magazine. And they found that both men and women, or all genders, apologize 81% of the time when they think their actions are offensive. However, women are much more likely to report committing offensive behaviors. So the key point I want you to think about here is when you apologize, does it merit an apology? Have you done anything wrong? And there's a Chrome app that actually helps women stop saying just and sorry in emails. It's that prevalent. People always ask, well, what should I do instead of apologizing? And a number of you asked that in the questions in advance. Here are some things you could say instead. Thank you for flagging that. Good catch, I'll make the update. I appreciate you noticing that. Excuse me, could you repeat that, right? Instead of sorry, excuse me, could you repeat that? Thank you for your patience instead of I'm sorry, I'm late. Unfortunately, I won't be able to make it. One thing I see women do a lot is feeling they have to explain everything. You know, I'm sorry, I have something else. No, you know, it's unfortunate, but that time doesn't work for me. So again, sorry is just fine, but be intentional when you use the word sorry. There was some interesting research I came across that talked about you can think of saying sorry or thank you as either withdrawing from your energy bank account or depositing to it. And let me explain this briefly. So when you say you're sorry, you're really making a withdrawal from you. Your recipient of the word sorry has to give you something in return, right? Or do something for you. That's okay, no problem. Okay, so you're taking that's a withdrawal. When you say thank you, you're acknowledging that the recipient has already done something, and now I'm expressing appreciation. So I'm depositing. And what they say in this study I read is that if you say sorry all day long, you are going to come home feeling guilty and in a state of toxic self-blame. If, however, you have spent the day saying thank you, you will no longer be ruminating in this debt of withdrawals. So I'd be curious, any thoughts you have, put them in chat. We can talk about that later, but it would be an interesting experiment to try if you are somebody who does tend to apologize. Okay, number 3, we deflect compliments. And I especially speak with women in the workplace about this. You know, you work all weekend on a report and you give it and your boss says, hey, that was great. Oh, it was nothing. It was my team. They did it. That is great. I'm all for sharing the credit. However, there are also studies, I'm happy to go retrieve them if anyone wants to see them. I read one recently from HBR that suggest that women assume their managers know how well they're doing. Men are much more likely to talk about their performance and make sure their manager knows how well they've done. So I would suggest that in the workplace, especially, think about ways that you can humbly take credit for your hard work. You know what? I'm so glad you said that. I really worked hard on this. I knew this was an important presentation, and I am thrilled that it went over well. Boom, that's it. And by the way, my team really, came to bat. But don't be ashamed to take credit. Usually others don't see what you've done in the workplace. Number 4, emotive language. Things like I feel. I feel your proposal is inadequate, or I feel that strategy lacks merit. A better way to do this is to use, I do apologize here very intentionally for what happened to the formatting that was in the transition when I sent it over, I guess. But anyway, confident leadership looks like this. I believe we can do this. I believe we can meet our numbers versus I think. I know I can do this, or I am confident I can deliver on this. I assure you versus, oh, what concerns me is, I get it. I love that, because what you're saying in that 3 little words is I heard you, I understand you, and I'm committed. I envision, that's a great word to use if you're trying to sound more strategic or become more of a leader. You envision a world that looks like this, or a product line that would work this way. Okay, number 5, qualifiers. I'm no expert, but, or this may be a dumb idea, but how are you setting yourself up to be received when you do that? Hedging language. We do this a lot. I kind of, maybe, really, sort of, perhaps. I was giving this talk and I had a woman who was in our workshops staying at my house. And after I gave this talk that night over dinner, she said, oh my gosh, I do this all the time. Will you look at a note I just wrote to my architect asking for a meeting and help me rewrite it? And I said, sure. And then after we did it, I said, can I share this in my deck? Because I think it's a great example. So here was Denise's note before we worked on it. Dear Larry, I just want, and the green is my accent. I just wanted to find out if we could possibly meet next week. If it doesn't work, I totally understand. But if it does work, I'd really like to find time to finish our project. Hope we can meet Denise. Okay, by the time we got done with this, here's what it sounded like. Larry, could we please meet next week to finish our project? I am available any day at 8 a.m. Thank you, Denise. I can't see most of you, but I see a few nodding heads. I see Mariella loud and clear. So I'm going to just go with Mariella's verbal cues. Usually people say, oh my gosh, that sounds like me on the left. And just think about, you save yourself a lot of time for one thing, but you can be kind and you can be direct and still get the job done. Fillers. This was the one I was especially guilty of. You know, you can put in the chat your own filler. The ones I hear the most are like. If you have younger kids, I coached some 20-somethings and I hear the word like. I've had to say that to many younger people. I just used there are a lot of fillers. One of you asked a question about fillers, so I'll answer it now. And it was around, how do you remove these? So my suggestions, and it was specifically the woman who asked it, uses a filler when she's asked a question and she's trying to buy time. So here's what I would suggest is acknowledge the question. Mariella, that is a great question. And then do one of two things. Do you mind if I think about that a minute? And then think about it. I think that would command a lot of respect, that you're going to take the time and give it some really serious deliberation. The alternative is, Mariella, that is an excellent question. Can I get back to you? And I have found a lot of women, we believe we always have to have the answers. And I'm in plenty of meetings with men who say, great question, let me get back to you. Now, be sure you do get back to them. But there are, those are the ideas I had on how to address fillers. The other thing is, I'm going to talk in a few minutes about having an accountability partner. My daughter, one of my daughters was actually my accountability partner, and she was working on her own speech patterns. And we agreed that we were going to tell each other when we used them. And I think we had a signal, you know, touch your nose, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. But awareness is the first step to addressing these. As I said in the beginning, I wasn't even aware I was using and when I first started giving this in person, sometimes I would pass out marshmallows to the workshop attendees. And I say, okay, I'm going to do my best to not do anything I tell you not to do. But when I do it, you get to throw a marshmallow at me. And believe me, I had a lot of marshmallows in those early days. I think I've improved, but I still make mistakes. So the point is, these are not always the easiest things to change, but that does start with awareness. I still read newspapers, and I apologize that this is a little blurry. I'm going to get a cleaner version, but this was an article I found in the paper, and you can see, first of all, I don't know why the editor let this run like this, but they were like, we really think it could be a hit. And Morgan listened to it and was like, I don't like it because if we weren't used to it. And I was like, you can get the sense. It's just not a very elegant and persuasive way to talk. Okay, number 8, questions that undermine. This is when we say, does that make sense? Or right, I think is another one. What this does is it weakens the statement that you just made as well as the authority of the speaker. And we always, I like to ask people, what's a better way? When you present something, what would be a better way to ask rather than, does that make sense? And perhaps we can turn to the chat, Marielle. I'd love to hear what people think.
Absolutely. Go ahead and write it in the chat box, everyone. Okay, so we've got, does this help you? Please advise.
Please advise. I love that. Does this help you? Does this help you? Yes, that's great.
Do you have any questions?
Anything that's
thoughts?
soliciting feedback as opposed to undermining what I just said. Okay, so you had a few more?
Yes. Any questions? Make a statement. Say, I would like to hear your thoughts. Do you have any questions? What do you think? Let me know your thoughts. Is this clear? Hope it helps.
Perfect. All of those are excellent. And do you see how they are a more powerful, commanding way to present than, does that make sense? Do you get it? Does this, you know, right? So I think we cracked that one. This is a tiny one, and I don't spend much time on it, but I notice when I write thank you notes to people, sometimes I'll say, I'd like to thank you for last night. Why don't we just say thank you for last night? I'm also a former newspaper editor in my college. And so I really believe in tight language. And I think this is one we can probably get rid of. Intensive adverbs. These are the very extremely so. And what I wanted to share here is, again, I found this in the newspaper. This was Parziale's, I don't know how to say it, dream round with Tiger Woods. He finally gets to play with Tiger Woods, and they ask him, what was he like? And here's, I won't read all this. You can read it yourself, I think, if you have a big enough screen. But, you know, he's a great guy. He was great to talk to. It was great conversation, great company, great help. It was a great 9 holes. It was a good addition. Okay, he stretched his vocabulary. But you can see that when we get stuck with single words, we're not very persuasive and colorful speakers. And the challenge I would give to you here is figure out creative ways to expand your vocabulary. And this is especially true when you're giving feedback. And this is another tip from my speech coach. He said, if people come up to you after a talk and say, that was great, you know, say thank you, but then follow on and say, great, I'd love to hear what resonated with you. What was your aha moment? What are you going to take away? What was great about it? And if you're giving feedback to people, you know, that was great tells me nothing. I have no idea what I should repeat again. Now, if I say, Mariella, you were a fabulous moderator. You were so energetic. You had great eye contact. You smile all the time. Your head nodding was very affirmative, and you came prepared. Okay, now do you know what you want to do next time? Exactly. You want to reinforce those behaviors. So if I just keep saying, Mariella, you're a great moderator, we're really not helping Mariella grow. So think about that in terms of both receiving feedback and giving feedback. Excessive punctuation. This is another thing that women tend to do. I personally, and this is a total personal thing, but I try not to have more than 1 exclamation point in an email or in a paragraph. And I consciously remove them all the time. And I find that when I do, I feel like I come across stronger. So for instance, Mariella, that was a great workshop. I loved it. I don't need exclamation points. You know, I might say, have a happy Thanksgiving, exclamation point, but I really do try to limit them. Again, this is personal, but just think about how you're coming across to your reader. And this is so common now that there's actually a lot of confusion about exclamation points. And it says in the Wall Street Journal recently, these exclamation points are stressing people out. And people also ask, what about emojis or bitmojis in the workplace? And the Wall Street Journal also had a recent article on emojis. It is now okay to be, and it's not only okay, it's actually encouraged to use emojis in the workplace. The reason being, we have become such a text-centric or email-centric or Slack-centric, whatever you want to call it, non-oral communication communicators, that oftentimes it's easy to be misunderstood. And so if I say something I think is kind of funny, if I put a laughing emoji after it, well, then I'm clearly saying this was a joke. Take it as a joke. So that's what this article says. And there's 2 columns there, the ones that are okay for work and the ones that are not okay. You can probably figure out the kiss face. And somebody told me they used a keyboard equivalent and they didn't realize it was putting up like a kissy face every time she wrote it to her boss. So just be careful of using shortcuts. The word actually, I actually disagree with you. I actually have a question. It makes us sound like we're a bit surprised that we have something meaningful to say. To be honest, or to tell you the truth, this implies that you're generally not. Uptalk, and again, this seems to have changed my formatting when I sent them across the wires here. But uptalk is when we end our sentences as though it's a question. My name is Diane Flynn. I work at Reboot XL. We are the leaders in inclusive leadership. Okay, do I sound very authoritative? I listen to a lot of NPR and a lot of podcasts, and I'm always amazed at how the authorities they bring on speak in this uptalk fashion. And I guess because I give this talk, I'm highly sensitive to it, but I do not feel they come off authoritative when they are questioning everything they say. This is where I also have to add the cultural nuance. And I've had audiences from Brazil, and I'd be curious, Mariella, in Argentina. I know New Zealand, Australia. Uptalk is a very common way of speaking. I do not want to go against the cultural grain of how people speak. So please take this as an American-centric. I don't think uptalk in America is typically the norm. And it makes you wonder, are you asking me or telling me? Vocal fry. I was speaking at SurveyMonkey to their women's resource group there, and someone said, what do you think of vocal fry? This is a few years ago. And I said, I don't know, I've never heard of it. And so I went and I researched it. And I now know that this is a very common thing. And I, again, have worked with some young women who are interviewing for jobs, and I have identified vocal fry in their speech patterns. It is widely disputed. It is typically not welcomed. There are people who like it, people who defend it. So I'm going to put that out there. Men do it too, but for some reason, it is a little bit more grating when women do it. I think because it's men already speak in a lower register. So I'm going to play a quick clip because if you don't know what it is, Kim Kardashian didn't invent it. I guess it was around much before that, but she certainly popularized it. So here's a very quick snippet I found of Kim speaking in this vocal fry. Oops.
And out a little bit, green for time you. Now, poverty doing. You might like that one. I lived on the outfit and hated what you want and what you get. Interesting, naked.
Okay, you can only listen to it so long. That is an exaggerated version. I don't really watch Kim, but I do hear this quite a bit. And it is, again, it's this conscious lowering of, or maybe unconscious lowering of your register and getting that raspy sound. It is a very easy thing to correct, but again, it starts with awareness. So those are the 15 things I wanted to share with you. Spend a few minutes on why we do it. And this would be another great place for the chat. So Mariella, if you wouldn't mind unmuting and reading me, why do you think we do all of these things that undermine our impact?
So Tiffany writes, habit. We've got lack of confidence as well. Let's see what other people write. Socialization, nervousness.
Great. Media. Yeah, there's lots of reasons. It's the norm. I would argue that much of it is an unconscious habit. We are not even aware we're doing it. I guarantee when I point out that people say the word like, they have no idea they're saying it. As women, we often want to soften our speech. And by the way, sometimes that is absolutely necessary. I have had women who say, I am told all the time that I am too demanding, that I am too aggressive or assertive. I wonder who's telling them that sometimes. But if that's you, and certainly there are people that then being aware of some of these can soften it. Maybe saying, I think, might be a way to soften your speech. So again, use these intentionally. Most women are worried about being labeled as bossy or aggressive or abrasive or worse. And many of us like to appear humble or nice or likable. So then the natural question is, can we speak with authority and still be likable? And I'd say, yes, absolutely. So some ways to do that through warm greetings. Being authentic. As I said at the very beginning, we do want to be authentic to who we are and bring out our femininity. That is a good thing. We can be confident and authentic. Being positive. We have a team cultural, norm that we don't use yes, but language. Yes, but that won't work. Yes, but we tried that. Yes, but I think that's a bad idea. We use yes and, which is it's a design thinking principle, and it's a improv principle if you've been exposed to any of that. But it is amazing how that one word and can open up dialogue, it can open up conversation, it can open up brainstorming. Even if you suggest something I think is kind of not going to work, I would say yes. And if we did it this way, can you hear the difference? We often, when we do this talk, if we had more time or in person, we have people do an improv exercise where the first time you're trying to invent something, but you can only use yes, but language. And then we debrief. How did that feel? Everyone always says it was deflating. I didn't want to suggest anything. I knew my ideas would get shot down. And by the way, we do focus groups with companies all the time, and we hear this. Yes, but, or fixed mindset companies often shoot down ideas, and what it results in is people not wanting to speak up. Then we do the same exercise, invent a household object, but you can only use yes and language. And then we debrief on that. And it's amazing. In 2 minutes, the unbelievable creativity that's sparked from this brainstorming exercise simply by using the word and. So sometimes at the end, I always ask people, what's one thing you're going to take away? Oftentimes people say, I'm going to replace but with and see how that works. Compliments. Everyone loves a compliment. So also when you get that compliment, just say thank you. Someone, when I was giving this talk, said their mom told them that when somebody gives her a compliment and she says, oh, it was nothing, or I got it on sale, or oh, it's this old ratty thing you mean? She said, it is like you've just taken that gift and you've thrown it away. And I know when I give people a compliment, I love giving that compliment, and nothing makes me happier than when they say, thank you, that made my day, right? That's a really beautiful thing to do. We all need more compliments, especially right now. Trust me, you don't get them at work much. I do have a great team, but most people don't get them at work, and a lot of people don't get them at home either. So when you get them, just receive them and be grateful and appreciative, and you just might get more. Having non-work conversation, how was Halloween for your kid? What are you doing for Thanksgiving? Any of that is a way to be warm and likable. Humor, if that's something accessible to you, is a terrific way to be likable. And finally, smile. Everyone loves a good smile. And even if you're giving some feedback, you can smile and it can be received differently. The number one thing, though, that I think if you want to be, likable or at least persuasive, is to really see people. And that is all people. That is the person who serves your coffee, the person who bags your groceries. That is all people. And to acknowledge them, as Mariella said in the beginning, let's be present. Being present, eye contact, showing respect. It is amazing how far that can take you in the communication world. I also like to remind people, as Margaret Thatcher says, if, however, what you're setting out to do is to be liked, she says you will accomplish nothing. You may accomplish something, but you may not accomplish what you want to accomplish. And so I always tell people, when you go into a meeting, when you go into a presentation or anything, what is your goal? What are you trying to do? My daughter asked me, are you nervous? I said, no, because I got my goal in mind. I want to help the people on the line here. I want to help them use more impactful language. When you're really clear about your goal, then you forget about do people like you. You just want to accomplish your goal. So I want you to think about, and you can put it in the chat, one word or habit that you think you would like to work on this week. I don't mean next year. This week, I want you to work on it today. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. So be thinking about that. And if you could add it to the chat, we're going to come back to that. Some people say, well, how do I know what to work on? There's a number of ways. You can record yourself and listen back, as I did. You can have an accountability partner, as I did with my daughter. You can rehearse out loud and listen to yourself. Sometimes people will take whatever they want to work on and put it on a sticky and put it on their computer or on their mirror. And that's a reminder that every time they write that email, they're going to see if they have the word just in there. There are some apps that I would refer you to if you want to go deeper. Some listen to your speech and some read your writing. So personal, Grammarly, Hemingway, Like So, Ori are some. I'll show you what Like So does. You can pick a topic and speak for 30 or 60 seconds. A topic being if there's a word you're trying to watch for. And then it will tell you how many fillers you used. And then it will even give you a grade. I love this. How many questions do we have? I have a few more slides on what are they? Body language. Thank you. Do we have time to do a few slides on body language, or are there questions that I know we have some questions, but this might take 5 minutes?
Yeah, we do have some questions, and I just want to also flag in response to your previous question as well. Oh, I said just. It's so funny, right? You can, after your presentation, it's like,
aware.
Oh. All right. So to your question of what do people want to work on eliminating, not using humor to deflect compliments, accepting compliments and not saying like, less exclamations. I say honestly, or if I'm being honest a ton. I think improve on saying like, want to work on being recognized, listened to in an all male office. And that's where we'll stop there for that reflection.
Perfect. Thank you for sharing that. I would ask you to internalize that, take it away, and figure out some ways to really make progress, because it is definitely easy to do once you are made aware. So people always ask, well, you've talked all about oral language, but what about body language? So I've added a few thoughts on that. Again, the research suggests that communication is mostly body language. I find that pretty astounding. Your tone and the actual words are sometimes less important. If you look at this woman, usually I ask you what you notice about her, but I'm going to just, for the sake of brevity, tell you what I notice, and hopefully you'll notice some of the same things. To me, she looks confident. We're not even seeing her face. But first of all, she's on the TED stage. There's some that gives her some authority. She's standing with her feet planted. She's not shifting, at least this is not a video, but I'm assuming she's not shifting back and forth. Her arms are outstretched. She's not using these dinosaur arms, these little tiny things. She's commanding the stage. It looks like her chin is somewhat up, or at least level. She's not looking down. All of these things, she's standing very erect. And this is body language. There is something called isopraxism. Most people don't know what it is, so I'm going to give you a few visual clues and see if you can figure it out. Okay, I'm guessing some of you have thought of the word mirroring, right? This isopraxism is mirroring, and there is research around negotiating that suggests that mirroring somebody in a negotiation can make you more successful. So for instance, if I'm negotiating with Mariella and she's leaning forward and she's taken a stand and I'm leaning back with my arms crossed, I am not matching her energy. I'm not practicing the mirroring thing. And it's probably not going to be as successful. So again, something to be aware of when you're with people. The power pose, this is Amy Cuddy. She's a Stanford researcher. She has one of the most viewed TED Talks. She has a partner who has since disputed some of her research. So I like to put that out there, that this is not probably 100%, tried and true. However, she argues that this power pose, this open stance, does something to your psyche and physiologically to give you more confidence. I know many people who practice this before a big interview when they're nervous. Getting that open stance, doing things that open you up might help. So I put it out there if you think it will help, or if you want to watch her TED Talk. It's a very fascinating talk. Amplification. And this is something that came about, this word came about at least during the Obama administration. And what the women in his administration observed is that they would be in a meeting with a lot of men, and their words would fall flat. They would be ignored. They'd be spoken over. And this happened all the time. But men would, or their idea would be stolen. And so the women bonded together and decided they were going to amplify each other's voices. So when Sue says something that I think is a great idea, I'd say, hey guys, let's pause for a minute. I think what Sue said merits some discussion. Or I agree with Sue. I think that's a fabulous idea. Anything to get your voice heard. I thought this was pretty rare until I started working with companies and women's groups. And I hate to tell you, it happens all the time. So this amplification is something to think about, making your voice heard. This is a great book I came across. Some people say or ask, what other resources do I recommend? Deborah Tannen, You Just Don't Understand, Women and Men in Conversation. Excellent read. With that, I think we're ready to go to some questions. These were some questions you all submitted, and then I'm anticipating there might be some more that have come during the hour. So I'll go through these. Did you want to read them, Mariella?
Absolutely. And actually, I'd love to flag some of the questions we had come up in the chat box during your presentation. So going back to when you were speaking about sorry, we have Teresa here that writes, and folks that were amplifying her voice as well because they experience the same. She says, I have worked with men who expect that type of weak, in quotation marks, language from women and react negatively to assertive language. And then some folks chime in and say that they agree and they have experienced that as well. Do you want to comment on that?
Yes. I would say, and this is a challenging thing to say, but just because the men in your office like that doesn't mean that's exactly how you should come across, I think. I would seek to understand what it is that they like about that. Is it that they feel superior? Is it that that gives them a dominant platform? What is it about that comment that what is making them say that? That would trigger something for me. Now, again, if you're somebody who's been told you're too powerful, it's something to think about. I'm a big believer in feedback, and I have a workshop I give on how to solicit feedback and how to accept feedback, growth mindset, but also how to give feedback. And I think feedback is the best way to improve. And so if you have a trusted person in your office that you could say, what's behind that comment? I'd like to understand that. That's where I would start.
Great. And I have another comment here, a private message, staying with the theme, sorry. Have you noticed a shift generationally? I feel like males in my age bracket say sorry much more than the older generation.
Oh, that's very interesting. So this is a younger person saying this, I'm guessing. I have not looked into that. I would love that. If anyone has research, please send it to me. That's a very interesting comment around sorry. I do think that I've been helping with a class over at Stanford Business School called Work and Family. And the people in that class, it's about half men. And I think that the younger generation is much more liberated about equal access to careers, and I would venture to guess that language patterns might be shifting because of that, and the way they receive women in the workplace might be shifting. I'm 57. I know I work with a lot of men in their 60s. There's definitely an older, acceptability of certain comments or certain ways that they want women. A lot of them had stay-at-home spouses and have different expectations of women in the workplace. I do think the younger generation might be changing.
And then just to piggyback on that question, social media and just how we are bringing language to, the virtual space, how is that affecting? I mean, whether it be generationally or not, if you're online all the time and you do have to use more emojis, or you do have to, think twice about the exclamation points that you use, how would you recommend navigating those waters?
Maybe I'm old school, but I am still a big believer that when you have something sensitive to talk about, pick up the phone. I mean, that's what most people in my life who I respect do. Hey, Diane, do you have 2 minutes to talk? Do you have 5 minutes? And we get on a conversation. Because I think text, Slack, this quick communication is great for so many things. We get a lot done. We're efficient. We're moving at fast speeds. It's great. But when you get to those sensitive topics, I think there's a lot of room for misunderstanding, miscommunication. I've done it myself. I've been on the receiving end and I've been on the giving end. And I always find that I can rectify it through picking up the phone.
Great advice. Yeah, let's go back, let's connect with our voice. It does something to, your understanding of the person and yourself as well. So I have another private question from earlier in the presentation. Her question is, what suggestions would Diane have for non-native English speakers?
Oh, yes. I get people coming up after every workshop who ask me that. I would like to understand the question better. I coach a woman who's a senior woman in a company who is a non-English, native English speaker, and I know it's a huge source of imposter syndrome for her, and we're trying to work through that. I think many of these same suggestions apply. I'm trying to quickly go through the 15 in my head. I would still take out your fillers. I would still end with a period and not a question mark as you speak. I guess I would like to understand maybe if this person could private message you a little more detail on what she's struggling with.
Okay, so that's an invitation. Please write me privately and we'll give more insight to Diane. In the meantime, I'm going to flag another question here that I got privately. So this person writes, I find it hard to listen to my voice. It sounds weird and not very confident. Is this usual for women working on voice and confidence?
Oh my gosh. I did a course for Udemy on growth mindset, and they sent me the final version. I literally took 2 days to even watch it. I give this talk. And I told them, I said, I hate watching myself. I hate listening to myself. I don't sound anything like what I think I sound like. And they said that is virtually universal. So to whoever wrote that, you are not alone. I just would say, get over it. Listen, if you want to improve, if you want to have a growth mindset around this, you do have to listen to yourself. It is about the only way to grow. And know that you probably sound a lot better than you think, but you're very much in company for not wanting to listen to yourself.
Absolutely. And this is a good segue into this question here on the screen. So do you have any tips around making your tone of voice more confident? What's the appropriate vocal tone to utilize during business meetings?
So I'll start with the latter half of that. Vocal tone, I talked a little bit about vocal fry. I would suggest not slipping into a lower register. Oh, another person who is widely viewed as doing this is Elizabeth Holmes. Wait, Theranos. Right? Elizabeth, am I conflating the actress? No, that's her name, isn't it? Yeah, Elizabeth Holmes. Anyway, she had that lower register thing going, and yes, she raised a lot of money, but it was not usually well received. So I would not change your vocal tone. If you have an especially high vocal tone, that might be something to be aware of. Again, I don't want to turn you into talking like a man. So I think that's a pretty specific question. It's hard to answer. As far as tips around making your tone of voice more confident, I think starting with a smile is, even when you're on a phone call, I find if I stand, I walk around and I'm smiling, I have a different presence. So I would definitely start with a smile. Pause. One of the speech coaches I worked with said that there is such power in the pause. And we all want to fill those pauses. If only we recognized that that pause is what could really exude confidence. And then, what I do is I visualize my sentences ending with a period. And again, this is for, I'm going to just say those of us in the US for the most part, rather than the question. Where I have seen myself do this is in negotiations, where they say, what do you charge for that? And I'm going to make up a number, but I charge 5,000. Okay, 5,000. Do you hear the uncertainty in that? So I try to envision a period. My services are $5,000. I tell women, just zip it. Sometimes we sabotage our own negotiations because right after we throw it out there, we say, yes, but if that's too much, we can, just zip it and let them respond. So those are my tips for confidence.
Beautiful. Such great feedback. Thank you so much, Diane. We've actually got about 3 minutes left. So I would love for you to just take us out with some more food for thought.
Okay, this is my favorite question that I got.
Okay, go for it.
This one, because
Absolutely.
when I went through my coach's training, they gave me a great piece of advice and people love this one. When we ask why questions, and this is the one on the screen, we often put people on the defensive. Why are you doing that? Why did you make that choice? And what they taught us in coaching is to simply replace why with what or how. What is it about that resonates with you? How does that impact what you're doing? Once you put what or how, and even if you have kids, I have kids in their 20s, changing from why to what or how really opens up dialogue. So if you take one thing away, take that away from this conversation. Okay,
Absolutely.
you wanted me to bring this to a close?
Yes, and there's so many things to take away. So if you could just leave us with, what can we do starting right now? I know you gave us some tips early in your presentation, but we've got about 2 minutes left. So leave us with some food for thought, and let us know how we can find you when we leave this chat, so that we can support the work that you're doing and we can, connect with you on the social media or your email, website, things like that. So I'll pass the mic to you. And again, thank you so much for being with us today, Diane.
You bet. And I'm going to quickly put the website for my company in the email. And if I were to leave you with some parting words, pick one thing to work on. You may do 5 of these things. It's too much. It's too overwhelming. You will get frustrated. So I would say pick one thing to work on this month. And it can take a month. It could take years, but you will get better. But just pick one. And then I would say, put that where you're going to see it. If it's a word you want to work on, and if it's something that's in your written emails, put it on your computer. If it's in your voice, put it near your phone, wherever you're going to be speaking. And then second would be to have an accountability partner. I have found personally, and with people I've worked with, that having a partner to both identify when you're using certain speech patterns, but also to keep you tracking is really helpful. So those are my 2 final thoughts.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Diane. I really appreciate you taking the time to share how we can be more confident, how we can speak our truths. Thank you all for joining us for this past hour. I hope that you have learned a lot as well. And I see that we're all going through the same thing. So we are more alike than we are different. And hopefully we can remember that going forward and use language to connect more instead of separate ourselves more. So you all will be seeing this link in your rewatch email. Again, I think we dropped in the chat box. Thank you, Rose. Thank you, Nicole. This will be available immediately on PowerToFly. Take notes there. Let's connect offline. Feel free to connect with me as well on LinkedIn. Diane, thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate you, Mariella. And I did put my email in the chat. I love hearing from people. I love to hear what you've tried. I'd love to hear if you are challenged by anything I say, because I look to improve. So please do drop me a note if there's anything you'd like to discuss further. And thank you very much. Everyone have a wonderful Thanksgiving, if that's what you celebrate, and a wonderful week. So thanks for all you're doing